All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Wandering Tavern. We're going to finish up what we started last week, which was the story of Miss Helen Kirshner, who, uh, as a young teenager, was basically indoctrinated into the cult of, you know, transgenderism and has since detransitioned. And we're going through her story and I guess reacting to it would be the most appropriate word, but I'm not sure that actually fits with what we're doing. Can you all hear me okay? Everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So
There we go.
let's get started. Oh, and if you're wondering about this artwork, it was made by a good friend of the channel, Miss Cedar. She's been on here a couple times.
Oh, great. That's great. Yeah. And about this girl that Mr. Nolt is interviewing here, I am very glad she had the insight that to reflect that she was still miserable, if not more miserable, and was able to put the pieces together and link it to her false medication. She was smart enough to pick up on it all. There are others who don't, and they just double down and double down and double down because they cannot admit making a mistake. When she seems to have been looking for a real answer instead.
Mm-hmm. So I believe where we left off, she had just sort of stopped the testosterone injections and was coming off of those. So
of like, holy cow, this is insane. It's really weird. When I think back to it, it's like one moment I was kind of under this spell in this delusion, and then the next moment it was like the dormant, like rational me inside of me woke up and was like, holy cow, this is totally insane. Why am I trying to be a boy?
Yeah, right. It seems so simple, but if you're in the throes of it, maybe it's not. So at that point, do you just throw out the testosterone, or do you go to a doctor and sort of change your classification, or what happens?
No, I most
technically, since she got onto the stuff without any medical oversight and any nothing, no initial diagnostics, as I said before, neither psychologically nor physically, nor including no blood work being done, no organ anomalies checked, nothing, and not over time either. Which is what you need to do. You need to check on the patient. Hey, what's this new medication that we put in actually doing? Because you might have some weird thing that even in the case that you have the actual condition, you might have trouble with the medication. For example, being on the hormone therapy, cross-sex hormone therapy, that can be a strain for your liver because you have a daily intake of several pills. That needs to be monitored. If your body doesn't do well with that, and you want to continue this, then we should check for maybe some other medication that takes another route than your liver, and so on.
That doesn't include that she hospitalized herself for multiple times over the course of her detransition.
Yeah, and she basically hospitalized herself because of the insane amounts of testosterone she was taking. Yeah. She told the doctors, yet they glossed over it. Why they did that, we don't know. Last time we wondered either that it's it just seems likely that they just gloss over it because they don't want to get into trouble with the gender mob.
Yeah. And then at least in this example that we have before us, she was likely on other medication when she decided to do this.
I don't recall that.
She mentioned being prescribed other medication after her hospitalizations by like psychiatrists.
Oh, and she didn't take those?
I'm sure she did, but it's something to consider. Like, okay, if she was actually, having these major issues, they would want to consider those medications as well and how those would interact with any changes.
Yeah, of course. Especially since the hormone therapy does have an effect on your psyche. So not monitoring anything is just that in itself is malpractice. That in itself is not proper therapy. Transition is not simply you take the magic pill and there you go. And oh god, so basically her simply stopping the testosterone on her own is the best idea. She started it without medical oversight. Stopping it with medical oversight is, of course, not the best situation, but bloody hell, it's better than continuing. Let's put it that way.
Honestly, just stopped taking the testosterone. I threw it all out. I was really like disgusted by it. I just wanted it out of my sight. I wanted it out of my living space. And I went to this clinic that I had been going to, and I did tell them that I had stopped the testosterone, but they didn't ask why. And I felt too ashamed and embarrassed to tell them, because at that point, I really thought that I was the only person on earth who had ever regretted transitioning.
Wait. Did I miss that? She went back to the clinic that had prescribed her the testosterone?
I'm guessing yes.
It's like, can we hear that again?
I mostly just stopped taking the testosterone. I threw it all out. I was really like disgusted by it. I just wanted it out of my sight. I wanted it out of my living space. And I went to this clinic that I had been going to, and I did tell them that I had stopped the testosterone, but they didn't ask why. And I felt
Oh my god. They didn't ask why. And probably also didn't do any further monitoring either. Oh god. This medical system needs to be torn down brick by brick. This is broken. This is I'm about to say professional malpractice. Wow. And with that, I mean it's systematic malpractice.
Like you came in and told us you stopped taking this medication that you've been taking for 2+ years at this point, I think is around the timeline we're working with. And we're just going to ignore that because, God forbid we inform you of the long-term damage this could have done to your body, or be aware of certain side effects of this hormone leaving your body.
Yeah, detransitioners are completely left alone, and they shouldn't be, because I've heard similar stories from the UK, in some instances where the NHS did not help the patient simply because, oh well, then you don't have gender dysphoria, then you're healthy. Goodbye. And that's it. Because, and this is my guess here, they're completely dismissive. They do not want to hear from you again about any problem that any transitional means had done to you, had caused you. And the simplest explanation for that I have is that if they did help you with that, they would admit through the help, through the action, that this caused you problems, you should not have transitioned, and thereby the whole process was malpractice, that the diagnosis was wrong. Through the act of helping, through the act of repair, they would admit that everything that was done before was wrong, was a lie, was malpractice, whatever you want to call it. And they can't do that, especially since this has become an industry, which I think is one of the most scary ideas in this whole thing. Bloody hell. But yeah, good on her that she stopped. But the I cannot imagine what she had gone through thinking she must be the only one to ever stop this.
Yeah, that was what struck me as well, is that the way she sort of describes this beginning of this process, when she basically told someone, hey, I'm done with this, and nobody reacted. He told her, okay, this is what you can expect. Tells me that, like, she basically just got out of a cult. Like, this system that she thought was supporting her and would, stand by her for.
And the cult is supported by clinics and companies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the point where I'm not calling Planned Parenthood a clinic. That's a company. It has some medical staff, oftentimes with questionable qualifications, but it's a company that sells a product. And in this case, some very horrible one, that they have absolutely no clue what they're doing, and they don't care, because their goal is not to help you have a good life, to help you be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal is have
To
less
make
kids,
money off
have
of you.
people have less kids. If that means sterilizing people, making them miserable, maybe driving them to suicide, which is what some detransitioners do, or false transitioners for that matter, that's fine for them, because they are on this insane overpopulation scare, and therefore they have. It sounds so insane to say. They believe they need to push for a mostly complete genocide of humanity, or the planet will die. Which is a fucking stupid idea, because for one, the planet doesn't give a shit. And if anything, this is what environmentalists don't get. That if any environmentalist protection that we don't do that for the planet. We do that to preserve ourselves, to preserve an environment in which we can live. But I'm getting off topic.
It's why I'm not a huge proponent of, conservation and environmentalism as a whole.
There are good elements to it. Like I'm a big fan of national parks, national preserves, and such.
Exactly, but if we're gonna get off topic on this, since we started, I'm like, humans have, especially I see this with like the Greta Thunbergs of the world.
Oh God.
And those sorts of people, they really sort of
That's not about the environment.
Yeah.
Even. They just pretend to, because the environmentalist movement is just as much subverted and infiltrated and basically taken over from tail to head by socialists. Greta Thunberg's parents are rabid Antifa activists.
Mm-hmm.
That should just make you think.
Yeah.
And that they're drug addicted Antifa activists. that explains her condition.
But there was also like a show called Whale Wars that was on Animal Planet like a long time ago,
Yeah, I remember that.
which was
Whoa.
basically a small crew of they were essentially terrorists. Like Animal Planet published, edited, and produced a show about eco-terrorists basically assaulting Japanese whaling ships, which
Oh, is it about Sea Shepherd?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we can criticize that, but I give Sea Shepherd at least that they stand by their word from what I know about them, while Greenpeace is just this money laundering scam at this point.
Oh, yeah, big time. But it's sort of I'm of the opinion that like really big environmentalist causes tend to be more or arrogantly assuming humanity is not inherently part of nature. That yes, we change our environment, but we're almost like we're no different from the beaver. We're just on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And to say that we need to protect and conserve these species in the planet as is to say that humanity has lost its ability to adapt to a new environment, which means that humanity needs to die out.
It also sounds like they think themselves detached from the environment, like they're somehow above it, like some alien god being of energy that is not has no roots, connections with any of these things, and that is so counter everything that people who cared about the environment decades ago thought like, because those thought like we live in harmony with it all. We take and we give back. That's the cycle. We are part of the cycle. And that's why we have domesticated species, for example. Those can't survive outside anymore the way they are now.
No.
Sheep, look at the sheep. They just die.
Sheep are some of the stupidest animals in the world.
Yeah, they at this point, if we stop caring for them, they just die out. So that you could say there's a bit of a codependence there. We profit from the resources that the sheep give us. And the sheep have some time of life. You can call that enslavement and imprisonment and all of that. Yeah, okay. But then you have to complain about certain species of ants as well that are herding lice to milk them. It's a bit. It's more complicated than all of that, and the whole overpopulation. I shouldn't mention that. The whole overpopulation scare is a scare because they ignore several things deliberately that we've known for a couple, at this point, over a decade, I would say. For actual models of population growth show that we will likely cap around 10 to 11 billion. And this is a natural process. We just have never reached the population cap of humanity before because we never had a stable enough environment. The thing is, when we have an unstable environment, we have lots of kids because we have lots of early child death. So what do? Have more kids. Because you need to make sure that 2 or 3 make it past the age of 5 or past the age of 8. After that, mortality is quite far up. The mortality rates of medieval times, they were always counted as very low, but that's because child death was counted into that. If you remove the child death, they got as old as we do.
Like they say life expectancy has changed, but it hasn't. Men and women would hit around the
On
same age before
average,
they-
on
yeah,
average, it's higher, but that's the peaks. The peaks were always the same.
Yeah,
Um,
but
and
I think we're getting
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit more off topic. So
the thing is just at large. This has to do with why Planned Parenthood is doing this. That's the insane thing. So I'll try to do the TLDR. If you are interested in the more elaborate version, look for an actually good TED talk from a Professor Rosen. Was a Swedish. Oh my God, what was he? Some ecologist, something like that. Minister for something 20 years ago. I'm sorry, it's a long time. I looked into that. He's the reason we got data-driven documents, because he wanted his statistics data to be better conveyed to the general public, and that alone is an immense invention. D-free data-driven documents are a wonderful thing, and so that's worth looking into. Than Professor Rosen's talk in itself. And the basic idea is, when our quality of life is going up, that means healthcare, basic healthcare, food, stability, and basic education, basic parenting. If that all is stable, child mortality goes down. And when child mortality goes down, people have less children. And when people have less children, of course, the population explosion doesn't happen. My father still had 9 siblings, because that was the last generation that kind of had that. When you had the better childcare, the better child health care, but you usually have to have an extra generation. As long as you don't have some ideology, some religion telling you have a lot of children, people, when everything's good and children live, they won't have too many of them. And India, for example, 20, 30 years ago, oh no, in India is horrible, will overpopulate the planet. They have 6 children per woman. Oh my God. Now they have under 2 or around 2. That is solved. That's not gonna happen in India. It's gonna happen maybe in Islamic countries. It's maybe gonna happen in certain Christian sects where they say have 6 to 8 children, be quiverful or some bullshit. There is one Jewish sect that is like that, and the other Jewish sects don't like them for several reasons. And that's that. Technically, the problem is solved, which means usually it plummets when also you have too much. People live too close together in the cities. That also means they have less children, and that means population plummets. That never has happened for humanity before, because we've never gotten into this oscillation wave. This oscillation wave would now be starting. We would now hit the cap, would waver there a little, and would go down globally. And they try to scare us into, oh no, we need to accelerate this. We need to sterilize the children. We need to tell everyone to be trans and gay, and to abort every baby if possible, and so on. And just work. Have work be your fulfillment. Like, if anyone's telling me, work your ass off your entire life, never pursue anything else in life, don't have children for one, you know what I call that? A slaver. That is someone who wants to chain me to the workplace. You know what? I'd rather be chained to my hobbies. Oh yeah, you see, there's a loose connection to all this shit, like Planned Parenthood giving teenagers medication that technically can sterilize them, and not even monitoring their health, not giving a shit.
Ashamed and embarrassed.
Toilet is boiling. Sorry.
You're fine.
To tell them, because at that point I really thought that I was the only person on earth who had ever regretted transitioning. That was never a concept in my mind. All I thought was trans is awesome, trans is amazing, life is going to be awesome.
Oh
And so
God,
I felt so embarrassed. So I didn't
stop. That alone, that propaganda, that trans is awesome, trans is amazing. For that alone, I would want the activists that perpetuate this, that put this into the world. I want to see very bad things done to them. I want them not to be part of this earth anymore. Because that's like telling someone it's awesome to have cancer. It's not awesome to be trans. To actually have the condition is painful. The solution to getting rid of the pain likely means sterilizing yourself, as well as definitely not having a normal life, probably not having a family. Like if you are a self-serving psychopath that gets off on the idea, okay, maybe that's awesome for you. Maybe then it's a party for you. But for people with the actual condition, who have a conscience and who have some empathy, who have actual feelings, no, it's not. It's not awesome to be trans. It's something that you deal with, something you make your peace with, something that you figure out what you do about it, but it's not awesome. It's not something to be proud of. It's not something to hang a flag up for. It's a medical condition. It's not something to put someone on a pedestal for. Like, it's the next thing you're gonna do is put all the people in wheelchairs up on a pedestal to worship them, because that's what you're doing here. And it's at the point where it's not just people faking to need a wheelchair. It's where we're at the point where people say, you need a wheelchair, even though you have perfectly fine legs, you should chop them off, because having a wheelchair is much more awesome. Your misery would end if you chopped off your legs.
Mm-hmm.
That is the insane part. And then there's vulnerable people who buy into it, and not because she believed it, but because she wanted to solve what problems she had. But she had no other guide than these delusional, malicious cultists. There's no science behind what the people told her. There's none behind that.
Say anything to those clinicians, because I knew that this was a clinic in Chicago with like Black Lives Matter and trans rights are human rights,
Right,
like splattered all over their clinic, where all the clinicians were transgender.
Yes, Legacy. I've seen Batman Beyond too.
What?
Oh, I was talking to Legacy.
Okay.
Legacy said in the chat that splicing your DNA is a future trend.
Yeah, in 500 years, okay. Maybe 200.
That's actually an episode of Batman Beyond.
The thing is, oh god, that fucked up my train of thought. Well, where was I? All right, yeah. See, the BLM and this whole Antifa shit, they like to burn down everything they think is evil. Burn down that clinic. Let them taste their own medicine. The difference is, it would hit something just. And no, this is not a call for actually doing that.
Please don't actually do that.
Yeah, please don't actually do that. What you need to do is unmask this in the public, fight the legal battles, show proof that what these people are doing is not just junk science, it's not just pseudoscience, it is anti-science. It is against everything we know. Science has figured this condition out to all relevant parts for the patient. The dark magic beneath, like what is endocrinologically going on, certain details in the brain anatomy, Okay, yeah. Those you can still research on those elements, but for patient health, we know what to do. We know how to properly diagnose it, and how to properly differentially diagnose, to figure out you don't have this. You shouldn't transition. You shouldn't take hormones. We know that. But we also need the courage to say no to the patients, because if we don't, then that's a breach of the Hippocratic Oath. And these activists, clinicians, let's say, they are on a daily basis breaking the Hippocratic Oath, and that makes them not doctors. That makes them malpractitioners. It makes them frauds, and it makes them very dangerous people. It makes them the Mengeles of our present day. And on the trans rights are human rights bullshit. No. First, you tell me what even are trans rights, because nobody's telling me. I'm trans. I do not know what extra rights I'm supposed to have. That rather sounds like privileges. And on the other hand, I've read the Charter of Human Rights. There's nothing that concerns me beyond that. Furthermore, BLM is a socialist communist movement. Black supremacist, a racist, black supremacist communist movement. The human rights are completely, on almost every point, anti-socialist. Or if you want to see it in the other way around, socialism is in theory and practice, in its slogans as well as in its policies, against almost every single paragraph of the Human Rights Charter. For example, property rights, free speech, self-defense. That's 3 examples. Should that not be enough? Those are human rights. Socialism is against it. BLM is against it. So if trans rights are human rights, do I have to assume that in reality socialism is against them too? There's so much beneath the surface of this shit that it's baffling.
And if you ask them, like, if you were to ask an activist, like, okay, what human rights are denied you, they would immediately specify things like access to, resources to transition, things like that.
No, that's not it. What the fuck? On what basis? Get a diagnosis first.
Like,
and they want to get rid of the process of diagnosis. Sorry,
like we should be able to transition if we believe we are trans. But
that's not trans rights. That's insanity.
Yeah, that's not a human right either. That's that's your bodily
you being
autonomy.
A delusional, narcissistic, borderline prick. That's you being a child. You want something that you don't even understand. You are the child that got his or her first cigarette and now thinks, I should always get cigarettes because I just need another. I should get them for free. That's you. You're addicted. You're addicted to an idea. Like she was addicted to an idea. But she broke that addiction because she figured out, wait, this shit is actually bad for me.
So I was very scared to say anything about my regrets to them because I knew how people had treated the idea of regret in the trans community, which is not in a nice way.
Not in a nice. Is it denial that people really do have regret, or is it just outright?
There is no trans community. That is a lie in itself, and going and dismantling that will be very difficult. The thing is, socialists call everything a community now. I don't know if people have noticed this, because it was a very subtle change. There's now the gaming community, the Discord community, the gay community, the Jewish community, the whatever community. It's everything's a community now instead of a demographic, because the difference is a demographic is made up of individuals. Those individuals can disagree. They can have different levels of interest. They can have different peaks of interest. Let's say they can be filthy casuals, but they're all individuals. They just happen to be part of that demographic for whatever reason, either partaking in a hobby or just being born a certain way. And that is just a being. Calling all of that a community means it's now a monolith. That monolith is all the same. Everybody now has the same opinion, because now there's someone, an activist, who can claim to speak for that community. So now you have these annoying activists, oftentimes aren't even part of that demographic, that now speak for the gaming community. All gamers. But what the fuck? We don't even play the same genre, you asshole. That speak for the black community. All blacks. Democrats, Democrat voters, Republican voters, Christian blacks, communist blacks, but really they just want everyone to be communist blacks. The lesbian community, the women community, probably, and the trans community. There is no trans community. It's through this term that where they have defined that if you just think you're trans, you're part of it now. So we have all these people with Munchausen syndrome who just claim to be trans in their weird personal definition that has nothing to do with reality, nothing to do with medical substance. They can call themselves trans now. They far outnumber us with the actual condition. They even ostracize us with the actual condition because, of course, we're in the way of their delusion, their narcissistic bullshit. So they now define everything. If anything, there is a trans activist community, and that is the cult. That cult has nothing, zero at all, to do with us. And that cult will hunt you, will bully you, will harass you, will threaten you, will punish you, that's the word I was looking for non-compliance, for heresy, for going against it, for leaving it. It's like Scientology. It has nothing to do with us. I want not a single person to falsely transition. That there even are detransitioners is a sign that something is massively going wrong. For the cult, detransitioners mean, oh shit, there are people who have figured out that we are full of shit, and that makes us look bad. That makes it look like we are the bad guys. That is why they ostracize and try to shut up the detransitioners as much as they try to shut up the real trans people with the real medical condition. Because nothing about the cult is real. The cult is completely fake. It's solely organized narcissism, organized narcissistic personality disorder. You will find that there en masse. And it is in my personal experience with 10, 15 years political experience with these people, just being around these people for so long, it's like you start to think that's how people normally are, but that's thankfully not the case. But the leftist activism, it's not all like leftist voters, but leftist activists are mentally deluded. They have personality disorders through the bank. They are solely ego, solely emotion. There is no rationale with them. They think they're rational. with their little ideas of, oh, that's the bad guy, so we need to do the other thing. There's a very basic logic there. But they never check, is that other thing actually bad? It's just the dogma says that it's bad, so it's bad. That's an emotional reasoning. And so to cut it short, there is no trans community. We all want to be left alone. The only reason we, with the real condition, started talking more with each other is basically you could say as a loose self-help group to share our stories from social justice abuse. That's what's mostly happening these days. And what happened aside from that is usually only, oh, does someone have resources on how can I get a specialist in to figure out, am I trans? Can I transition? Should I do that, etc.? What can I do? And once people had that, you never heard from them again, usually, because once we have solved the problem, and we actually, oh, it turns out, yes, you have dysphoria, you get on hormones, your dysphoria goes down, you transition, you pass, you have a normal life now, for the most part. You don't need these other trans people anymore because your life works.
Yeah.
We don't define ourselves by being trans. We have so many other interests. We're actual people. We're developed, mature people with tons of interests and actual personalities. These activists don't have personalities. When you have these cluster B personality disorders, there's no personality. There is only the disorder. The personality was stunted in its development. So there's this faint like level 1 Rattata Pokemon deep down below. But that's nothing. That's the personality of an infant. It's just a big bubble of ego, and the big bubble of ego is very easily threatened. It very easily pops, and then you get the big tantrum. And all these activists, they always throw tantrums, and that's why they want to punish us, because we make them look bad by exposing their bullshit. Which is also why we don't need the pronoun game. I've talked about that last time, I think.
Right, hostility.
It can be both. So it's denial that regret ever happens. You see these like kind of statistics thrown around that are really, they're not relevant to the situation at hand, where it's like, oh, only 0.0001% of people regret transitioning.
Not anymore.
So you see that kind of denial.
Do what?
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Since the vast majority is now falsely transitioning, these numbers will shoot up even more.
Yeah.
Massively. And there will come more legal cases, and this whole thing will hopefully implode. And there will be huge backlash against. The people with the actual condition, we will get backlash too, because most people can't distinguish between the activists and us with the actual condition.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are actually invisible. Because the fucking goal is to be invisible. That's why there is no Trans Visibility Day. Like, what the fuck? That is the fucking opposite of what we want. This is how deluded and crazy the activists are, and where you see their narcissism. They want being weird and warped and unhealthy to be visible. They want the people with the condition that they want nobody to know about to be seen. Like, we don't want that. And said this before, and I need to say it over and over again because it's so vital. This is why it was so easy for them to take our condition over compared to any other thing they ever subverted, infiltrated, and have taken over and claimed to speak for. From the workers, the women, the black people, the immigrants, the whatever else, the environment, everything they claim to speak for and only talk shit. and never actually help. It was the easiest for them to take over our plight and lie about it. They say the exact opposite of what we want, what we care about. We don't want a pronoun game. We never needed it. We don't want any visibility days. We want, if anything, we want an invisibility day.
Mhm.
And that day should be every day. We don't want to be noticed. Explaining to people how this condition actually works. Okay, yeah, that would be helpful. Like, okay, there's this you have broken hormone receptors that leads to brain misdevelopment. That leads to this weird condition where your brain thinks it's interacting with the opposite body, and that causes pain, and that is alleviated by throwing in the opposite hormonal cocktail. And those people usually have androgynous features to some degree in various forms, and also seem to have reflexes, personality traits, interests of the opposite sex. So alleviating that pain, helping them to pass, is the best thing they can do. You can help them with if the patient decides to transition, and that is to not be noticed. That would be the perfect goal, unless you go into porn, probably, I guess, because there are those.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then you also get that hostility where it's like, oh, well, you're just stupid. You're just, everyone else is trans, but you're just an idiot. Where it's like,
Oh my
they
God,
really
oh my God,
turn
no.
on you.
This is so. This is actually, well, it's not fun going through that, but there's a
No.
joke here. There's a big irony here, because these are all things that people who pretend to be trans are being told. That you are wrong, you are being stupid, or this is just a phase, or some other shit. And they are telling all of that vile shit to the detransitioners. Everything she just said is what trans fake trans people are being told.
Mhm.
Wow.
Where it's like, when you are that 15-year-old, 16-year-old saying that, oh, does this mean I'm trans? They're like, yes, that means you're trans. You're so trans. You need to question yourself more. You need to change your pronouns. You need to get a binder. You need to do this. I'll buy you a binder.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where the deliberate misinterpretation starts. This is, talking with these non-binary bullshit people years ago. Oh God, it's so long. I figured that, and even with the live claim to be trans people that I've met in politics back in the day, and adjacent places, it always seemed like these people just don't like themselves.
Mhm.
And this not liking themselves, they misinterpret as being trans and thus having to transition. This is so this is not the Münchhausen part. This is the escapism part, or the hypochondria escapism variation, where they have problems, yes, but they then blame it onto some condition they've heard about and think that if they treat the condition that they've heard about, that they don't actually have, but they don't know that they don't actually have it because they've been told wrong about that, then the problems will go away. And that's where she fell into, because she thought her problems will go away if she does that, and they didn't. And she realized that, and that's how she came out of it. Many don't. And it's what I explained last time with the magnets. These people are just repelled by themselves. They don't have an actual direction. They would latch onto everything they would be told. If there was any other cult, they might latch onto that. Be it some small thing, be it some you're now part of this sports club, you're now part of that religion. Anything that gives them an identity, let's say. that is not their core self, that distracts them from their actual self, so that they do not have to reflect. There would be in part there's overlap with narcissism again, which the better term in my book is emotional immaturity. And going through puberty, that's a completely natural thing to have explode for a moment, because in puberty we have these new brain parts growing. One of them, the prefrontal cortex, that helps you to reflect more and make long-term decisions. But since you got all this new hardware, all this new wiring, all these new signals going around, that's very confusing. And you have all these hormone surges. It's all horrible. Many people don't like themselves during puberty because they have to figure out, who the fuck am I? The narcissist never gets an answer to that, and that's why the narcissist puts on other identities, like roles in a theater, like costumes in a theater. And if we manage to get out of that and actually mature, that stops, and we're actual people. We're beings. And it seems she got to the point where she started, where she stopped identifying and where she started being.
These people, and then as soon as you regret it, they're like, "Oh, you're an idiot."
Could you forgive what is a binder?
Oh, it's a chest compression thing. So when I was on Tumblr,
these things, if you're really a woman with actual gender dysphoria, I can understand these, but they are not good for the tissue, for the breast tissue, because especially long term and during growth, especially. Because that is a main problem with bras as well, just not as intense. Due to the compression of the tissue, of the breast tissue, the general waste production, toxin production of the cells, of your body cells in that area, cannot be hauled off normally by the is it the lymph system? It cannot be washed out again. And this increase of toxicity in the tissue can lead to increased risks of breast cancer. So bras are great, but it's also important to give your breasts some airtime. About these binders, oh God, that is hell. That is hell for breast tissue. It's not just oh, it's pressure, oh, it hurts a bit, la 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 la. No, it's actually dangerous.
And actually an older adult person on Tumblr bought me a chest compressor when I was about 15 or 16.
Oh, that's not horrifyingly creepy.
Without a diagnosis. No diagnosis. Yeah, it's horrifying. Sorry, this emotionally riles me up, and this is why I have a hard time watching videos of detransitioners. It's not because it's not that they revile me, rather the opposite. My heart breaks every time I hear one of their stories, because it should never have happened. It should never have happened that these people transitioned in the first place, and I am not in a stage where I can help people much beyond sitting here and talking on some stream, some interview. But I want to help these people. I want to prevent that it even happens. I want proper diagnostic tools that weeds out the what do you say? The wheat from the chaff in English. And because only people with the condition should transition, nobody else. If you want to do that for your personal beauty fetish, weird body modification thing, okay, but you're not trans then. You're just a body modification fetishist. Being trans it's also an operation doesn't make you trans. That's what I want. That's what I want to say. That's what they claim the trans medicalists or true scum want. There are some extremists that think that. I think I haven't run into them personally though. But my position is simply, it's not the operation that makes you trans. It's the condition of gender dysphoria that makes you trans. And the actual one, not these weird new redefinitions that the trans activists come up with, where they have, I have social dysphoria when I sit in a room and people don't know that I'm a woman. And like, you're bullshit. You're full of shit. Or where they say that, I socially transition. I wear women's clothes now. Like, you're a cross-dresser. That's a fetish. That's not being trans. That's its own thing. Has nothing to do with our condition. You are not trans. You are a cross-dresser. And this is where people want to elevate their weird fetishes into normalcy by claiming, oh, it's part of this large umbrella of trans. Like, no. Throw away the fucking umbrella. There's so much crap hiding under it. There is this condition, and that's it. If you have gender dysphoria, this thing that I described before on this stream, before on other streams, that is it. And that you can treat or not. But whether you treat it or not, you're trans because you have actual gender dysphoria or had it. This weird brain anomaly. That's what causes the pain. If you didn't have that, you were never trans to begin with. And I have heard from some detransitioners describing feelings of feeling off with their own bodies, not liking the new body parts they had, like men growing breasts and etc. And how they described it sounded a lot like gender dysphoria, as if they got it from the false transition. So why are you pushing this on people? You want people to be miserable. These people do not want to help anyone. They don't want to help us, especially. All they want is a fulfillment of their magical Tumblr borderline fantasy of I want, and fetishize over the idea of trans and the idea of transitioning and whatever they invent for it, like the magic neo-pronouns. That's an invention that they came up with, that they fantasize about the condition, something that we don't think about. We never came up with. That's the idea of delusional people with magical thinking that 20 years ago would just have defined themselves by their zodiac signs and what moon phase they were born in and whatever other shit. That's why you have a lot of overlap with these trans activists, not just with borderline personality disorder and other magical nonsense, but also with these Wicca weirdos that basically make a mockery of the beliefs of our ancestors here in Europe. But that's a whole nother topic. But it's basically this, I'm a witch. Like, fucking hell, people didn't call themselves witches. That was a slanderous term by the church. What? Yep. Lots of shit. Like, basically, every bullshit movement that we've had to deal with, let's just say the past 150 years, was at its core run by these crazy cluster B types. If you look into the suffragettes, how they acted, what they did, it sounds like they had borderline personality disorder. I'm fucking serious. But yeah, go. I'm sorry. I'm getting into a rage.
Man. So okay. So you say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I put the testosterone away. You seem great. You seem sort of back to normal. Have you had long-lasting effects from these years? I guess luckily it was only a couple of years or so on this testosterone. It doesn't sound like you did any further procedures that might have been harder to reverse. Are you dealing with long-term effects?
I have been really fortunate in that I haven't had any long-term health effects, which is not something that many people can say. Many people, even after maybe only 2 years on testosterone, like they're still dealing with very permanent effects, and sometimes it can be dangerous health effects too. But I have been really fortunate. For me, the hardest part has been kind of the psychological aspect of feeling like I was really indoctrinated and I was really led down a bad path by just people that I didn't know and that didn't know me, and were just encouraging me to make these decisions and telling me that life would be so amazing. And that's been really hard to kind of come back from. And also
this is why the sort of I don't know how, popular it is just yet, but the sort of like top surgery reveal videos
so
that
dumb.
are on TikTok now.
Yeah, that is propaganda. This is the point. This is the point. If you actually had gender dysphoria as a girl, and there's much fewer, biologically speaking, and there's a much fewer girls having this condition. But even if you had it, you wouldn't want the world to know. I am betting with you that over 90% of all the biological girls that removed their breasts, that had their double mastectomy, will regret that 5 to at the latest 10 years in.
Yeah.
When their child wishes really kick in, and their motherly instincts kick in, and they think, where's this feeling coming from? I want a kid. I want to nurse a kid. I don't have breasts. What's going on? That will happen to them.
Yeah, and but I think there will probably be just an explosion of young women who were told by, malicious actors, because that's really what they are, that this is who you are. This is the real you. And they will
and
do
their
these
caring
things to
mothers
their
bought
bodies.
into the propaganda because they were made frightened and told this is good, and if you don't do this, your child will kill itself.
Yeah,
which is just horrible and also false.
like it, and here probably 5 to 10 years from now, when these young girls finish college and start, going on their own lives, and it they're excuse me, sorry,
Bless you.
There's going to be a lot of regret. I think this will be a story we see more and more, and most of them that come out and do something like this interview, will far and away not be as fortunate as this young lady.
It's basically detransitioners every detransitioner needs to be on all these shows. They all have to speak out. They have to make it. We'll probably get to the point soon, and maybe we're already there, where we can have group interviews with detransitioners.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get 1 or 2 people with actual dysphoria in. And you get your transact 1 or 2 trans activists in as well. And then we can have the real trans war. And then we can, oh God, that sounds awesome. And then we will fucking see that we, with the actual condition, the real trans people, I'm going to use that word, I'm going to use that term, the real trans people and the detransitioners are on the same side, on the same board against the trans activists. And you know what? Maybe we can even get a turf on, and it will be so funny when we agree with the turf that the trans activists, we will all agree together that the worst people in the room are the trans activists. The turfs may throw a shade at us as well, maybe, but we will all agree the trans activists are the shitheads and they need to stop. Because this is the insane thing. I have had more reasonable conversations with TERFs than with trans activists, and I'm the fucking trans woman. Stuck in mid-transition. Sorry about the voice. I said it before. Imagine that. This is the insanity we live in.
So just other than the transitioning in and of itself, I made a lot of decisions at that young age, chasing this fantasy that were really not good for my life. And so kind of, it's been just like digging myself out of this hole that I dug for myself at a really young age. But now, thankfully, you know, some years after, I'm really like doing a lot better, and I'm just kind of focusing on telling my story so that people can understand better what's going on, because a lot of people just really aren't aware about so many of these things that we're talking about today.
What do you mean you sort of made decisions for your life that you're digging out of now, beyond the obviously the physical, you're shooting yourself up with testosterone? What other, if you don't mind sharing, what other sort of decisions?
Yeah, there's kind of this common dynamic in the trans community where it's like, if your parents don't completely agree with your being trans and you're transitioning, that they're evil and they're horrible and you need to cut them out of your life. And
on this is the thing that they told the gay kids 20 years ago. But now homosexuality is so accepted that that problem is over. Like, there's the rare occasional case where it's still like that. Yeah, very, very fundamentalist parents, whatever. But they don't have that problem anymore. So now they have this invented, this overblown trans issue, where they put that now, that they cut your parents off. And the thing is, the cut your parents off thing, this is how cults recruit their members. Cut out your family.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because your family will not be happy that you join us, the cult, and we really want the best for you. Your parents don't. They don't want the best for you. They want you to suffer. They don't agree with what will help you. That's why you need to join us. And this is also how, and this is why I keep calling socialism a religion, for many other reasons as well, for how they function, what they believe in, how they are opposed to reality, how they are opposed to science, etc., etc. It's how they recruit people. It's why they go for the young. It's why Antifa is mainly comprised of very young people. Teenagers, 20s. That's mainly that is the broad mass of Antifa. Because people tend to grow out of that, just like she grew out of this bullshit and saw through it. I'd even say that it's less that young people tend to be more left-leaning. It's rather that the left preys on the emotional immaturity of the young. And as your rationale grows throughout the years, your ability to reason, you see through the bullshit. That doesn't mean that you don't hold social systems as a good idea anymore. It's rather that you see that the left just preaches that they want them, but they don't actually enact them. They don't have any idea on how to run them. They don't have any idea how to finance them. And if they have them, they only use them to keep people dependent and indoctrinate them further. And when you realize that, you think, yeah, I am still for social systems, but also social security systems, let's say, but not with the left, not with what the left does, not with what leftist politics are, because that socialism crap, it's a scam. It's a scam, it's a religion, it's a cult, and it only exists to enrich its leaders that pull your heartstrings, and you don't even know it. And this is part of recruiting that. It's not just that this cult is so evil that it doesn't just prey on the vulnerable and the miserable, but that it creates them. It makes people miserable, thereby makes them vulnerable, and thereby then tells them, we have the solution.
Mhm.
That is the true evil. They're not just exploiting the weak; they are creating them.
And so I actually did do that for a period of time where I just completely stopped talking to my family. And on the one hand, I feel like I really hurt my brother in that way. I have a little brother, and I think like he really needed his sister during some of those periods. And I just wasn't there because I was chasing this pipe dream. And then on the other
That's a good
hand,
way to put it.
while I was
Pipe dream is a good way to put it.
I agree. God damn.
Great choice of words. Very, very on point.
I apologize for me clearing my throat. I guess I've just got something stuck in there. That's definitely a good way to put it. From the very beginning of the interview with all the Tumblr and the sort of the magical thinking that came around when she was during the process of her transitioning and now coming out of it, she's like, oh wow, that was just a crazy thing. And then I think this is an aspect that a lot of people don't really talk about is the damage she probably has done to her, at least in her own mind, if not actually done to her relationships with those close to her.
Yeah.
Like she said she had friends, or at least had maybe a couple friends prior to her transition. Do you think those people are still around? Do you think she hung out with them anymore?
Didn't she say she was more of a loner?
She did.
That's what made her vulnerable.
Yeah.
But yeah, family relationships suffer from that, of course.
Was kind of disengaged with my family, my grandma developed Alzheimer's. And by the time I was able to reconnect with them, she was basically gone. So that's been one of the most difficult things to.
That is crushing.
Mm-hmm. On the one hand, that's a deeply crushing thing for her to sort of realize and be like, I wasn't there for her in those moments. But on the other hand, I have to say that on the other hand, I have to be like, she got really lucky because she's not going to have that moment where this person who, I loved my grandparents while they were still alive. Most of them have passed away. And I was very close to, but for me, the imagining of that, of the moment of who are you coming from them, that I would never want to experience that. So I can see both sides of that, of saying, yeah, this had a good thing. You never had to sort of experience that devastation of seeing this loved one not recognize who you are, but at the same time, like, this isn't just for me, this is affecting the whole family. And I should have been there for that.
Yeah, and I mean, Alzheimer's is a special variation of this, of course. But like when my grandmother was hospitalized, and she was the closest family member I had, my mother basically kept me from ever seeing her since she was hospitalized, and I could never say goodbye to her because of that. And this reminds me of that. I wanted to see her, even if even at the point where she had gone, where she was gone, because I was she put me in the car to drive to the hospital on the day that she was pronounced dead, to do the paperwork, to witness and everything. And I was just made to wait outside the hospital door. And It was almost was one of these things where you think this is like a movie or something.
Mhm.
And because there was an open window further up next to the entrance where I was waiting, where I heard this heart machine beep going on, and then at some point it stopped. I thought, huh. And so I had no idea in which room my grandmother was, but and I was 5 years ago, and that is my grandmother died in 2001. 5 years ago, I talked about this, and I was told, no, that wasn't my grandmother's room. She was already dead, allegedly.
Mhm.
I do not know whether I believe that. It makes little difference. The moment is almost the same, whether that happened or not, because the fact of the matter is, I was never allowed to really say goodbye.
Mhm.
I would have needed that, even if she was lying dead in the bed. I would have needed that, and I think she had felt something similar.
Mhm.
It's just I don't know. I don't want to presume too much, but yeah, when things like this, the actions of others, be they malicious, be they Oedipal nonsense, deprive you of things you need for life, for your journey through life. That is just a giant tragedy.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to.
Cope with, just in this like haze of chasing this false identity and this ideological thing. I gave up one of these really important relationships in my life. So yeah, that's been really difficult.
So that is hard, and it is a reminder. Everybody, not just people who go down this kind of crazy rabbit hole, which you're describing as being quite cultish, right? Cut off all your family,
Yeah.
pursue this very sort of radical view of human nature and fantasy. But everyone to some
Yes.
degree, deals with these things where, if I had not been so focused on this one thing, I should have done this differently. I could, this really set me back a number of years. So now that this is being debated, not just for 18-year-olds, by the way, but for 8-year-olds, for 5-year-olds, there's
Insane.
a big fight over a law.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
I
The
agree.
condition is irrelevant at that age.
Mhm.
It's barely noticeable, even for the child. It's barely noticeable. That's no way to intervene there, and you don't know what not only don't you know what that child will decide later on, you I'm sorry, it's a bit exhausted. You have no idea what you're medically doing. You are
Mhm.
depriving that child in case it actually has the condition. And most of these kids that are called trans kids aren't trans at all. They don't have it. They don't. They have parents who want their child to be special. And being trans is the current thing where children are special with. 20 years ago, there was the autism boom where every child was now autistic. There was the before or after that was the boom where every child had ADHD. My child is special. My child has ADHD. Often it didn't. Often the child was just an asshole. Same with the my child is autistic. My child isn't bad at school. My child is autistic. My child isn't a bully. My child is autistic. No, your child is an asshole because you're an asshole parent. Because you're some Oedipal Karen and not parenting your child properly, and therefore it turns into an idiot and a bully. Your child doesn't have ADHD. Your child doesn't have autism. Your child isn't trans either. You're just a brat of a mother. And what you deprive the child of as well is, if it actually has the condition, which is very unlikely, you deprive the child of the chance that it goes away naturally.
Mhm.
And then your child could have a normal life without dysphoria and have a normal family, have children. You could have grandchildren. But since you're probably a psychopath anyway, you don't give a shit about that. I'm getting angry. I hate this
Florida
movement.
that says you can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I despise this movement. Nothing has done more damage to us and healthy people than this movement. I am not scared of neo-Nazis as I am of the Antifa mob, as I am of the Rainbow mob, for disagreeing with the Rainbow mob, for having questions to the Rainbow mob activists that they can't answer. And if they can't answer a question, they get upset and bratty and threaten violence and call me names just for asking a question to understand, what do you mean? What is that? Can you explain that to me? Like, can you, the trans activist, the rainbow fetishist here in front of me, the, I don't know, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old, whatever, can you explain to me what is trans? And then they start, and they notice themselves that they don't know anything. They can't even define it in their bullshit ways. But I'm just plainly to accept it and join them and like the rainbow flag. And because I don't like the rainbow flag, I'm the bad guy. Yes, this is a cult. This is how fascism works, defined by Mussolini in a simplified manner. What did Mussolini say? How did he define his fascism? Everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. You can simplify that to everything within the movement, nothing outside the movement, nothing against the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Or religion, or idea, whatever else. Nothing outside the club. Nothing outside the community. This is what they are. This is a fascist movement. The rainbow flag is a fascist symbol. The trans activists are fascists. Antifa are fascists. Oh, what a surprise. This is why all socialism will ultimately and always end in fascism. Or in this basic hyper tribalist, extremist tribalist form, where everyone who's not inside has to be destroyed. Because everyone who's not inside can't be a good person, because any good person would join us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Prepare your kids from this.
About transgenderism in a kindergarten classroom, and the White House is saying this is horrible and abusive, and of course we need to talk about transgenderism to toddlers. What is your advice for parents who might be dealing with this with their own kids now or in the very near future?
So for parents who aren't dealing with it quite yet, I think one really important thing is to, recognize that social media is very dangerous, and these devices that kids are using are very dangerous because they don't have, adult level rational cognitive faculties, and even many adults are not really able to moderate and think critically when interacting with some of these platforms. So one thing I kind of ask parents to think about is, when your child wants to go for a sleepover, you ask them, who is this friend? How did you meet? Who is their mom? Where do they live? What is her phone number? You maybe even want to meet the parents and go to coffee with them and get to know them. But when your child's been sitting on their phone for 6 hours straight, you have no idea where they are and who they're talking to. And kind of going with that, I think a lot of parents, reflexively think that the solution is to just ban all social media.
Pause.
I think we talked about this a little bit last stream too.
Yeah, and technically she's not wrong, because with us more tech savvy nerd kids of the 90s, maybe early 2000s, The internet was a very special, small place. Yes, there were some shenanigans going on there already, no question. But the entry hurdles were quite high. So the kids who got on then were a little more mature than the average. Today, everyone's on the internet, everyone's on social media, and especially all the people who are just prone to emotional manipulation. Very easy. And that's why at this point, because this is a different internet as well, this is a different landscape. At the very least, social media, I would that moderated to be an 18+ thing only. Instant messengers, okay, but social media, all this where, because what social media is it's the big marketplace in imagine Monty Python's The Life of Brian. And that's the marketplace in Jerusalem with all the different preachers from the different religions and all the doomsayers that say, the world is going to end in 12 years because the planet's going to implode. And follow my cult because my cult is the bestest cult and you must join it and everyone else should be killed. Social media is basically that marketplace, and you let your kids run free around that and listen to all these weirdo doom prophets. That's what you're doing. That's what that is. This is not the old internet where it's mostly about Star Trek and cat pictures and science. That's not it anymore. I'm sorry. Now it's the marketplace with the doom prophets that want you to join their cult at every bloody corner. And you don't even, and some of them are really good at masking themselves. Like everyone that has the rose in the fist. If you know what I mean by that, you're already smarter than most other people. That's the base logo of the socialist movements. Because it's not just a rose, it's a fist holding a rose because it wants to give you that beautiful rose by fisting you in the face. Apparently, I don't know how else to read that. It always comes back to that. But yeah. No, we do not have the education for kids, teenagers to responsibly use the internet, especially social media. And the teachers currently in place everywhere, because it's mainly leftists going for that, they're fine with that because that's how they get new recruits into their bloody movement. They're not interested in educating the children. They're interested in indoctrinating the children. And the only way to do something about that in the now and the long run is if non-leftists, non-socialists, that can mean anyone, can mean lolbertarians for fuck's sake, go into teaching, go into the education sector, take it back from them. Anytime socialists get into power, first thing they want is the education ministry. And this is why. And Clayton fell out. Damn. Or did I fall out? Hello?
Oh. Apparently Clayton lost connection. Oops.
Oh dear. I just ran out of a rant. That's not good.
Yeah, that happens. His Wi-Fi sucks.
Never stream on a Wi-Fi. Use cables. Cables are great. Cables are like Wi-Fi, but contained in a secure tunnel.
Hold on, he just texted me. Let's see. Says, my internet died. I'm trying to come back now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, get into the education sector. Take it back. That's the only way. I mean, the United States offers this homeschooling stuff, which I was very skeptical of as a kid. Now I'm not. Now I think, oh fuck, good they have that. Because as a
Okay,
kid, I thought that the homeschooling stuff is what indoctrinates children, and now I think, oh, but now I see the public schools indoctrinating children. So it's good you have this alternative, because in
Mhm.
Germany, homeschooling is against the law.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. So, seeing how in like the past few months, there's been a huge pushback against woke culture in the U.S. Do you think that'll eventually make its way over to Europe?
The pushback, oh god, that may take 5 years at least. The insane policies of the left, they come here by now not in 3 to 5 years, but in a day or 10.
So
Because the activists are pushing it really, really fast. Like it was just the day that we started talking about, the Americans can't abort their babies anymore after the Roe v. Wade thing, which is just as bullshit. But that's how they discuss it.
do you think woke culture began in the U.S. or in Europe?
What exactly of it do you define as woke? Because that's just an iteration of what we had, basically, I'd say, since the hippies.
I guess probably the U.S. then, since I'm
Yeah.
thinking like racial equality, gender equality. But
That's not what. No.
well, but
I
put
won't.
put to the
I don't. I
extreme.
don't want to call a movement for um, uh, human equality. Let's say in the most broad sense. I won't. I don't want to call that woke. They did not invent that idea. They did not invent the idea of all people being equal before the law. That is a way older idea, and it's been practiced for ages. Sorry, did I kill the thought there?
Oh no, just trying to think of what else to say.
This version of basically the left is the one that's racializing and sexualizing, if you will, everything. That I'd say is a product of the whole Frankfurt School bullshit, which is an outcropping of socialist activism and the pseudo-intellectual pseudo-philosophy bullshit that started in Germany, in Frankfurt, but they moved to the United States, where they then could fester their crap. And of course, for a time, that has some positive effects on the surface, but in the long run, it was always meant to come to where we are now, and it's supposed to go further. Because they also paint this whole slavery time as completely black and white, pun not intended.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When they leave out that there were black slave owners, they left out that slaves could buy themselves free, which is the same as I think even under Hammurabi several thousand years ago. So,
Yeah. Also,
it's all more complicated than they painted.
Yeah. Also, during the 19th century, the British Empire forced all the places they colonized to abolish slavery.
Yes, they also leave that out.
Are you still with us, Clayton?
I have returned. My
Hello.
Wi-Fi literally just disappeared.
Yeah,
So,
you need cables. Cables are like Wi-Fi contained in a little secure tunnel.
Yeah. I'm in the process of getting a router that I can use as a extender that I can manually plug myself into. But I think that was just the whole house went down because the Wi-Fi on my phone went out too.
Yeah, okay, then it's a router issue.
We live in an area where a stiff wind takes out our power, so it's not uncommon.
Put your power lines underground like civilized people.
I don't look.
No?
I don't know. I wasn't there. we we weren't considered in that. I'm pretty sure most power lines now are underground, but
Look, it's current year. We have Mars rovers. Why are your power lines not underground?
Is it really that windy in San Antonio?
repurposing old telegraph lines, I guess. All right, so let me pull up the video again so we can keep going. We don't have actually that much left.
Yeah.
To go for a sleepover. You ask them, who is this? You maybe even want to meet the parents and go to coffee with them and get to know them. But when your child's been sitting on their phone for 6 hours straight, you have no idea where they are and who they're talking to. And kind of going with that, I think a lot of parents, reflexively think that the solution is to just ban all social media. And while I think that's really well intended, these kids are more intuitively able to get around that. They're better at using social media than you are. Yeah. They will get around it. So just like to protect your kids from someone in the real world, you wouldn't ban them from ever talking to anybody, period. Yeah. You would talk to them about who their friends are and get to know what they're doing and what they're thinking about and who they're friends with. You should.
You know what I do?
Social media.
No smartphones for kids.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't mind that.
Get Nokia back up and have them make. They're making good old brick phones again. These indestructible things that are the dumb phones, and kids can have those.
I remember, like you won't find this at Apple stores, but like AT&T and Verizon or like the Sprint mobile stores. I don't even think they have those, but like if you have a brick and mortar cell phone store that's near you, like an AT&T store, go in there. They still have like old style flip phones.
Yeah,
perfectly
and
available.
I know, and then I'd be that parent, and my kids would hate me because why can't I have a smartphone? And it's like, oh God, I would be so happy to have little nerd kids that do nerd shit and are tech savvy and everything. But I've realized the absolute insanity that is now on the internet, and I don't think any kids are ready for that. Not the way it is now. And this would need to be a wide movement because, of course, then there would be mobbing. Haha, you only have a dumb phone. Haha. Yeah, that would be shit. But at least the pedals don't get you that easily.
Yeah.
You'll thank me 20 years later.
Screw off, Java update.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a similar way. Get to know, like, especially if they're still young, just get to know what they're doing, what they're interested in, learn about how they're spending their time. Because when they are on these devices, like, that's still time spent. That's still information learned. That's still conversations had with people who you don't know who they are. So I really encourage parents to focus on that communication and really understanding what their kids are doing on their device.
So basically, do your job as parents.
Digital enlightenment.
Monitoring your children, what your children intake,
It's called parenting.
Yeah. Weird how that's sort of fallen by the wayside under the influence of the activists.
Of course, because everything is now happening in public school. And the parents, including the mother, is working all day. You never see your children. And by the way, this is, I know people complain that I talk about socialism, this, socialism, that all the time. But this is how they do it. This is what's behind all this shit. It's having control of the kids by the state and have the parents distracted and working. and so that the kids can be influenced by whatever the state bullshit is, and that is driven by socialism. They invented this whole setup with in the claim of, oh, that frees the mother from her home duties, so now she can how do you say that? Now she can find herself, realize herself through work. Like, because before she was chained to the oven and caring for her children, and you call that slavery, and now she's chained to the workspace, her cubicle or wherever she's working, and that's freedom now. Yeah.
Mhm.
And she doesn't see her children anymore because you are taking care of them, because you certainly only have the best of interests at heart. And then we have broken family bonds because they're not really developing in the first place. Yeah, great. That's what happened in East Germany and large parts of the Soviet Union, because it was the whole intent. Weak family bonds, so that the family can't rely on itself, can't rely on each other, and is more likely to rat each other out for wrong thing, for criticizing the government, for speaking against the trans agenda.
Yep.
And I have, I think it was definitely in Canada. I'm not sure at the moment. I think there were similar cases in the US already, where Child Protective Services took away the children, 1-digit-old children, from the parents for not recognizing the pronouns of their children, and they called that child abuse. That was definitely in Canada.
Mhm.
That's
I'm not
the
shocked.
fucking thing. That is insane. That is what
Yep.
socialism does. This must end. And 500 years ago, such insane tyrannies were ended in rather direct ways. Right now, we sit here and we keep thinking, yeah, maybe I'll wait 4 more years and cast another paper slip in the ballot box, and then maybe things get a little better, maybe, and maybe then in 10 years I may see my children again, maybe. What and oh, it's all totally legit. There's no one would ever shuffle with the votes, unless of course Trump wants to be elected, then it's Russian collusion.
Mhm.
What the fuck? Like, get open your eyes, for fuck's sake. You need to. This won't change unless you get into politics. This is the sad thing, that these people politicize us so much and try to demoralize us so much so that they can just take over, define everything, and control everything. The only soft way that does not involve violence is if we get our asses up and all go into politics and change it back and drive them out and call out their bullshit and have the courage to do it. Freedom is the act of speaking without any fear. Of course, you will always have fear. Sure. But the difference between the coward and the hero is that the hero has the courage to overcome the fear so that you can speak, so that you can have freedom. Because that's always a fight, and it's an endless fight. And it will be an endless fight as long as there are socialists and other crazy ideologies that stand against it. Whether that's Scientology, whether that's some other weird religion, doesn't matter. It's always the fucking same.
Mhm.
Oh, Horned Rabbit is in the chat. Hello, Horned Rabbit. Horned Rabbit
So-
said, I think in Sweden, a Polish family
Yeah.
lost all 3 of their kids to Child Protective Services because their teenage daughter said she was raped by her father. When she realized what she did, she tried to reverse it. I probably don't think that the government allowed that. Oh yeah, Horned Rabbit says that as well.
Yeah.
One of the kids was a toddler. Oh my god, that is just... Yeah, this is where this brings us.
Yeah. And I think the sort of anti-lynching bill that passed here in America, which was
I didn't know that was still allowed.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I thought
It probably
generally
isn't.
lynching laws were off the books in most areas of the country, but
I think that's already done so by you are not allowed to kill people.
yeah,
You're not allowed to physically assault people, and isn't lynching that?
Yeah, I kind of assume lynching just falls under the category of murder.
it would, but now we can actually charge people with lynching, quote unquote, as an addition to their crime. So basically, it makes it.
That makes it does that make it easier to persecute Antifa and BLM?
I suppose on the one hand, but on the other
Depending
hand,
on what
you
state
end up
you're in.
with, in Britain, the low seizures were actually pointing out like this sort of like
Take a breath.
generic, ill-defined legislation leads to incidents like the ones in Rotherham, where you have Muslim grooming gangs just raping young white girls, and nobody does anything about it because they'll be called racist.
You can say little girls. They are little girls. That is the atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Making a law like that is that's just a publicity stunt. It changes nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And still, pedos get off for just after a couple months, if not years, and just do it again while you're still underage. It's great. Fucking insane. Like the one guy that got shot by Rittenhouse, he had 9 or 13 convictions of child rape, and he only had so few because that was the compromise. Otherwise, he had been charged with 21, I believe, was the number. And that guy was out again. Why was he out in the first place? Your criminal justice system in the United States is absolutely borked.
Oh yeah, we know.
Because letting the one part of the justice systems, because Americans seem to put more of an emphasis on punishment with imprisonment, which is a bit low tier in thinking, honestly. The important part of imprisonment is protection of the public. After that, you put rehabilitation. And after that, the tertiary thing is punishment. The first thing is protection of the public. And the good thing about rehabilitate whom you can rehabilitate. It's usually done with the lesser crimes. Because then, not only do you not need to pay for a prisoner with your tax money, you also get a productive citizen back. But there are people who you can't rehabilitate. Like German prisons are much nicer, you could say. We have the highest we have a high focus on rehabilitation, but we have cases where even after people have set their time, if it is evaluated psychologically that okay, this person just will do it again. Because we know this is a psychopath. He doesn't care. He has no remorse. He has and he has an extremely high probability to just reoffend. And it's not just burglary or some scam on the internet, some little one, but no, this will be murder and rape and shit like that. Then that person stays inside. You may think that unjust in the United States with your obsession of punishment and capital punishment as well. But for us, the protection of the people has a higher value, and that's why we have these both things that you don't do: rehabilitation and okay, if this guy is too crazy, we need to keep him locked in because he's too crazy. The sad thing is just that we at this point also have a lot of activist judges. We get more open communists into our Supreme Courts in the states
yeah.
and even on federal level.
Mhm.
And they let the murderers and rapists of migratory origin run free. They don't imprison them. They just let them run free. They say, "Oh, I didn't know that's forbidden here," and then they get off.
Yep.
And that's insane, because we also have the rule that I don't know how to translate that. Dummheit schützt vor Strafe nicht. It means ignorance does not protect you from punishment. Ignorance of the law. But yet it counts for these people. These people can claim ignorance from the law for murder and rape and get off. It's insane. That means these people are privileged. These people are above the law.
These people who are not citizens,
on top
who
of
should
that,
not have the protections under the law that a U.S. citizen should have, are just let go because they're the outsider.
I'm talking about Germany specifically here. And any other person would say, well, that sounds like you're under occupation, aren't you? Well, yeah, a bit of a tangent here. Sorry.
Devices. As for parents who may be going through a child who already is identifying as trans, and you know in your gut that it's just not the right thing, I would recommend checking out an organization that I'm a part of. It's called GenSpect. That's GENSPECT. It's basically a organization that advocates for parents and has all sorts of groups where parents can talk and be advised on how best to navigate your relationship with this this kind of crisis that is fomenting. So yeah, highly recommend GenSpect and getting involved in parent communities and learning about the better ways to manage this, because it's always better to be informed.
That analogy you just...
I haven't looked into that thing yet. I hope it's a good one, and there need to be more of them.
Same here. I can agree. There's also,
had this PTSD shit not happened 4.5 years ago, I wanted to build an actual help network that is for education about the trans issue, the real one from the medical perspective, and leaves out all, or even warns about all the rainbow propaganda that is plain wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea it would get... I knew it would get worse. I didn't know it would get like this. But I wanted to build something like that because I had found nothing at all that was in any way helpful in my journey. No one who gave pointers, and the help organizations I went to or I tried to contact that allegedly were some trans talk bureaus where you could talk with someone that is like in the level of street work or something, where it always turned out, oh, the trans help worker is currently not here, but you can also talk. But you can talk with one of the gay helpers. What's that supposed to help me? Well, how's that person supposed to help me with anything? In one place, the first thing I had encountered was like it was just happened to be in the capital city of the state I'm in, and thought like, oh, what things are here, and like, oh, maybe I have to wait 3 hours anyway. I can go over there. Maybe they have some time. Went there, and there was someone, took the time, talked with me, and the first question then was, like, after the hello, was, oh, why do you want to cut off your penis? Like, what? It was like the first question. And at the end of that conversation, where I felt like I have to explain myself to an absolute retard, the woman, the in her 40s maybe, then told me, basically revealed to me that she's not from the trans help people. She's from the homosexual help people in the thing. Like, why did she talk to me then, and why did she not say this from the start? Because then we might have had a different conversation. It was absolutely, and this is what I constantly ran into. So, and I was, let's say 7 years ago, and so 7 years ago here, you got still no sensible orientation or help direction in this whole topic, and what you get now instead is all this rainbow trans activist bullshit that also has nothing to do with our condition. There is no actual place for us, and this is why life stories like the one of this girl happen, because all there is out there is bullshit.
Made of the sleepover. I haven't heard that before. That's such an apt analogy, because obviously you wouldn't send your kid to a sleepover where you have no idea who the kid's sleeping with. You have no idea where the kid is going. And yet when you send your kid up to his room and he's got his smartphone or a laptop or a tablet or something at 10 o'clock at night, and he's scrolling on Tumblr or whatever social media device talking to God knows who, you are sending your kid to a sleepover. There is really no difference. It's just one is taking place in virtual reality.
Well, what not worse? It's actually how he describes. It's basically you send your 8-year-old to a sleepover with the host of Drag Queen Story Hour.
Yeah.
Yay!
Which can indoctrinate them into ideologies that are virtual reality.
Like, imagine if your 12-year-old.
You could argue the same thing for anything, really, like flat Earth.
At least the flat Earth doesn't hurt anyone.
True.
It's just dumb.
Well, if you watch season 2 of Inside Job, it hurts someone.
I have never heard of that.
Inside Job? It's a show on Netflix that...
So it's bad.
It's actually good.
Ooh.
I mean, it is a quality show.
The one good one every 2 years?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But it's about a corporate. It's about like the Illuminati and the shadow government and the deep state and all that.
Well, okay. I know this is another tangent, but please amuse me how they portray the deep state.
So basically, the deep state is a bunch of triangle-headed masked individuals who speak through voice filters.
No, that's a conspiracy.
Yeah, like the
That's
whole
not the deep state. The deep state.
The whole
deep
show
state
is about that every conspiracy is real except the flat Earth.
The deep state is simply the permanent workers in the state that you don't elect. That's the secretary. That's the guy who makes the. That's this. I forgot the name a couple of years ago. Mario something. Who basically made all the schedules of all the parliamentarians of when they meet which lobbyist. Do you think that person has some sort of power?
Yes. They do.
That is the deep state.
Yep.
Because barely anyone knows his name. He decides who meets whom and when, and he's not elected.
Mm-hmm.
That is power. That is all that And that is all that the deep state is. That's all. I just wanted to let that out because people have such a misconception of that term. Basically, watch the show, old British show, comedy show, Yes Minister, and Yes Prime Minister is the follow-up after a Christmas special. Old good BBC, I think it was the BBC comedy show with among others Sir Nigel Hawthorne as the permanent secretary of a recently elected minister. The minister is a fool, a good-hearted fool, and Nigel Hawthorne playing Sir Humphrey Appleby, the permanent secretary assigned to him, is basically just annoyed with the minister because he's in the way of politics. Because it's the permanent secretaries who deal with politics because they're permanently employed, they're permanently there, and the ministers change all the time. They want this policy, that policy, and the permanent secretaries are basically just mitigating that the ministers don't disrupt the government too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the idea, and that show was made, I believe, in the 60s, 70s. It's beautiful. Margaret Thatcher loved it. Whatever you think of that woman, but that means she understood politics, and she even did a live skit reading a script with Sir Nigel Hawthorne and one of the other actors. There's a recording of it you can find on YouTube. It is gold. So if you want to learn what the deep state actually is, watch the comedy show Yes Minister. That's all.
Old child asked if they could go to a meetup with people from China.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, would you just let them board that plane and go without asking anything about it?
Right.
Or would you like really try to understand what was going on?
Yeah. Wow. An amazing story. Helena, thank you so much for coming on. Where else can people find you?
I am on
Twitter
and
don't you want your kids to go to the Aztec human sacrifice cult?
Yeah. I'm going to let her do the Twitter stuff just in case people want to follow her.
Stack both are under the same name. It's pronounced LaCroix, like the drink, but the last three letters instead of an X are a CSZ. That's a little bit difficult. Maybe you can put it in the show notes or something. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter and on Substack.
Wonderful. I really encourage people to head over there. I loved that essay you put up on Substack. I'll have to take a look at your other writing as well. Really wonderful stuff. Helena Kirshner, thank you.
All right. So that is
smart girl,
that.
courageous girl. I'm very glad she did that. I'm very glad she came out about that and shared her thoughts. Very profound, and I hope the best for her.
Yeah. And
be strong and inspire more people. We need more detransitioners to speak out, and more than that, we need more shows. Is it whether it's Michael Knowles, whether it's Dave Rubin, whether it's Trigonometry, or also Stephen Crowder? Interview more detransitioners, and interview the ones with the real condition, and maybe have both of us on. Because we agree that the trans activists are the villains here.
Definitely. I would say share this interview around. Like, send it to people you know, because especially like, you know, the normies who aren't on the internet perpetually like we are. Like, if they haven't, if they're listening to like Ben Shapiro just casually, have them watch this. Like, have them grow and understand, like, this is what these trans activists, these trans rights or human rights people, this is what they want. This is what they want people to experience. This is what they essentially
They don't care
forced
about
onto
helping
this
you.
woman.
They don't care whether you are miserable. Maybe they want you miserable. There are those that get off on that. There are sadists among the trans activists, for sure. But they certainly do not count about you being well. They want you to be part of their thing,
Hmm.
because you not being part of the thing makes them feel invalidated. And that is what happens when you're a narcissist, when you are just ego. You feel very easily attacked, slighted, invalidated, even just for imagined things. And Horned Rabbit, that is amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you. And also, if you people, I think people also should hear the some commentary from a real tranny about this, to know that we are on the same side on this issue. And maybe there's a tranny out there somewhere that is a little more short spoken than I. That might be more digestible. But either way,
Probably Iron
Yeah.
Liz. Though I'm not sure how to get in touch with her though.
who was that?
Iron Liz. She used to date Linkara back in the day,
Okay.
but she's actually gotten pretty base since then.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that internet drama.
Mm.
Because it's internet drama. I'm just here to play video games
It's some
and
really
rant about
old.
socialism.
If you remember that guy with the glasses, like one of the first really big sort of movie reviewing internet
The nostalgia critic
things.
guy?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that one of his offshoot staff people?
Yeah, Linkara
No.
was. Oh no, Linkara was one of the big names on Channel Awesome.
Hmm.
Okay. I have no clue. And
Yeah,
I
but
don't care.
it's old drama.
Internet history.
Yeah. Lord knows that moves fast enough. But I think so. Thank you. I think we're good here. So thank
Yeah.
you all so much for watching. Thank you very, very much for Wisp, who I know it's almost midnight where you are. So thank you for staying up late with us.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on our show.
Oh, sure. For this, of course.
Mhm.
Where there's not enough counter force against all this bullshit, especially from us, because as I said, what we want is not to be noticed, so very few of us will speak up, because that means we have to sacrifice what we gained, the one thing that we want to gain.
Mhm.
And well, since I'm stuck in this transition limbo for over 4 years now, thank you, fucking rainbow assholes. Why not talk? Why not talk? Because it's as it looks, it's still not getting better for me. And I wanted to make content all these years, but I wanted to at least get the voice done. But yeah, here we are.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back next week, and y'all have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, and share
Yeah,
around
take
and
care.
stuff,
Mhm.
and comment.